Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to take a look at the vintage collection. And there weren't a ton of really interesting sales, but I did manage to put together a really nice list of autographed TVC that one particular seller had. I also do have a few non-autographed items, a couple of vehicles, one graded item, and then I do have the SDCC exclusive Salacious Crumb and Mouse Droid that recently sold. So we'll dig into all that in a second. I do have a few shout outs that I need to give. First, supers. I got two supers that I wanted to say thank you for. Jeff E. and Sith Droid. They sent me supers last week for some videos. Thank you both of you for sending those. Sith Droid, you've sent a bunch of those lately, and I just wanted to say thanks for supporting the channel. And I also did get two new Patreon supporters, Kevin Neild and Jeremy Feely. Thank you guys for becoming Patreon members. Really appreciate you guys supporting the channel, as well as all my other Patreon members. They get 24 hours early access to all my videos, as well as buy it now alerts on eBay. And you can go to patreon.com/actionfiguregrader to sign up. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. Let's start off with some non-autographed items first that sold, and then we'll go from there. I wanted to include this one because it was a loose General Grievous, 100% complete. I just thought it was an interesting sale at $60 plus $5 shipping. So even loose, General Grievous is very desirable. Definitely one of the coolest figures, in my opinion, from the vintage collection line. And not often we get to show these early TVC loose and, you know, just 100% complete like this. But just an awesome figure. But that one did sell for $65 shipped. We also did have another one of those triple 3-packs. So this is the Target exclusive special action figure set, where it had 3 3-packs inside this gigantic box. The box was obviously in pretty rough condition, but this one did sell for $77 plus $21 shipping. So somebody just finally gave up, said, I don't have the room for this thing, so let's pass it on to somebody else who wants it. I don't know how he could possibly ship this for $21. I think it's more like $121 to ship that, but pretty cool to see that one sell. Next up was a VC-115 Darth Vader Emperor's Wrath, unpunched, beautiful U.S. card. And talk about one that has really dropped in price. I mean, I feel like a year and a half ago, this was going close to $300, if not above that, you know, ungraded now we're talking about. And this one did sell in an auction for $119. So that really shows you how much this one has dropped. And really, it was in pretty clean condition. I didn't really see anything wrong with that. I was trying to figure out why it sold so cheap, but that is what it sold for, $119 plus $8 shipping on that one. Antok Merrick is another one that has dropped in price. You know, this obviously was packed in with the Target exclusive Rogue One X-Wing fighter, and tough to find this one clean. This one obviously has the same issue that most of them do, where there's this long scratch going down the left-hand side of the card. It's faint, but there is a scratch there, as well as by the hang tab. So very common to see that because it was just how it was packed inside the X-Wing. But otherwise, fairly clean. I mean, it wasn't perfect, obviously. It also did have a ding above the warning label. But still, that one sold for $58. $58 is a pretty good deal, given what this one was going for way back in the day. Interesting, too, this one has kind of, I don't know if it's like reflections from the inner tray that's on the left-hand side of the card, or if it's an actual wave to the seal. I can't tell. I can't tell. It looks like it might be just be reflections from the inner tray onto the left-hand side in this photo, but it almost looks like an issue that you see with a lot of the vintage Kenner items, especially Empire Strikes Back mint-on card backs, where there's like a little wave to the blister seal, but it's probably just my imagination in that. But anyway, that one did sell for $58 plus $6 shipping. Or Marco Prune Face. This is one that seems to have held up pretty well over the last few months. This one was over in the UK and sold for 90 pounds, which is 112 US dollars, and that seems to be about the going rate. This one did have a ding in the lower right-hand corner. So, you know, usually this one is kind of going around that same price, anywhere from $100 to $125. But before we go any further, it's all going to be this one seller that I guess decided to offload his autographed vintage collection, and I thought they were really fair deals for the most part. So we are gonna start with Oromarco, since we had an unsigned one that sold for $113. This one was signed by Colin Hunt, which I assume was the actor that signed by Colin P. Hunt, who I assume was the actor that played Pruneface in Return of the Jedi. So there it is. And that one sold. This was another U.S. card unpunched, and that one sold for not much more than what the other one sold for unsigned. So I thought that was interesting. That one sold for 100 pounds, which is 125 U.S. dollars. And again, at least here in the U.S., that's about the going rate for a near mint condition Oromarco unsigned. So I thought that was a great deal there. Same seller had a bunch of others. This was Colonel McCracken, signed by Michael Stevens. Michael Stevens is the gentleman pictured on the card back. So there he is right there. And that one is signed by Michael Stevens. That one sold for 65 pounds, which is 81 U.S. dollars. A very good deal there. Then we had, let's see, the Off-World Jawa signed by S. Malik. I have no idea who S. Malik is. Let's see. Signature was obtained personally by myself at one of the conventions. She is one of the Off-World Jawas in the Mandalorian series. So there you go. Signed by S. Malik. No idea who that is. But 50 pounds for that. I mean, that's $62 and change plus shipping on that. So you could have built yourself a pretty nice vintage collection, autograph collection from this one seller. Next up was Quentin Pierre. Quentin Pierre also obviously portrayed the Black Bespin Guard in The Empire Strikes Back. So apparently he also did play an Emperor's Royal Guard. This was a re-release version of the ERG. That one sold for 70 pounds, which is 87 U.S. dollars. Then we had John Morton signed Dak Ralter. So I don't know why John Morton signed that. Let's see. The actor who portrayed the character. Is that true? I didn't realize that Dak Ralter was portrayed by John Morton, but maybe he did some of the stunts. I don't know. But that one did sell as well for 100 pounds, which is $125. Same seller also had the Gamorrean Guard, and that is Dickie Beer. Dickie Beer is a pretty well-known stuntman who did a lot of the stunts for Return of the Jedi. He did some stunts for Boba Fett, probably around the Sarlacc pit battle for the Return of the Jedi. So pretty cool signature as well. Pretty distinctive signature for Dickie Beer there. And that was the Gamorrean Guard. That one sold for 80 pounds, which is 100 U.S. dollars. And then we start getting into some of the more recent autographs that still command a pretty big premium. First up is Katie Sackhoff, who obviously portrayed Bo-Katan, and that one did have the Beckett's authentication as well, so you can see the Beckett's authentication sticker. And so that's what happens with a lot of these when you go to conventions, or if these particular actors do signings with Beckett's, is they sign and then Beckett's puts a sticker on it letting you know, which some people don't like. I don't know if I particularly care, but if it's already been authenticated by Beckett's or James Spence Authentication, you can send it in to Collector Archive Services, or I assume UKG, and you don't have to pay another fee for the signature authentication. You just pay for the fee for grading the actual item. So that's just something to know, that you don't have to repay the signature authentication fee. And there's the signature there, very distinctive signature as well. That one sold for 120 pounds, which is 150 U.S. dollars plus shipping. And then we had, let's see, Wedge Antilles signed by Dennis Lawson. So that's pretty cool. And that one was an unpunched card as well. And that one sold for 90 pounds, which is 112 U.S. dollars. Ayla Secura, this is Amy Allen. That's a pretty distinctive signature. She always signs it in very bubbly letters and usually has a little heart next to her name there. And it also always says Ayla Secura in quotes. So that's a really cool one. This is the Ayla Secura unpunched U.S. card. That one sold for 100 pounds, which is 125 U.S. dollars. Giancarlo, I think that's how you sell it. Giancarlo Esposito, he obviously played Moff Gideon. And he's got a really cool signature, very clean lines there, very gentlemanly signature. That one sold for 120 pounds as well, which is 150 US dollars. Very cool signature there. I thought this one was a cool idea. I had never thought to do this, but this was the foil clone Commander Cody, and obviously the clones are all based on the likeness of Temuera Morrison, and that was kind of the first time I've ever seen a clone Commander Cody signed by him. Usually it's a Boba Fett or a Jango Fett, but in this case, this particular seller had the clone Commander Cody foil signed by Temuera Morrison. So I thought that was a really cool idea. And that one sold for 230 pounds, which is 287 US dollars. Obviously, the clone Commander Cody foil goes for 150 bucks unsigned. So I would assume that this one would go for a lot of money. And this one was authenticated by another company. I forgot the name of this company. It's like SW Autograph Universe or one of those. Let's see. This one was, it doesn't mention who there it is, authenticated by Star Wars Grading Authority. So that's just another autograph authentication company. And I know for a fact that CAS recognizes that company as well as, like, you know, autograph. There's like a DNA type of autograph where they have like some kind of DNA signature sticker on it. It's very complicated and well past my knowledge level based on my very limited educational background. But that one was a cool one as well. Next up, obviously, Ashley Eckstein. She does a lot of autographs, but it's interesting because she's probably one of the most plentiful autographs that's out there. I mean, she does a lot of conventions now, and it's pretty easy to find her autograph, but she charges a lot, obviously, for her autograph at conventions. So that's usually the big driver for these items. But that one sold for 250 pounds, which is 312 US dollars. I think that's about what she charges nowadays for the conventions. You know, obviously not all of that goes to her. There she is signing in this photo there. You know, obviously the convention hall takes a cut of it, but it's about that much now, I feel like, for an Ashley Eckstein autograph just for the signature. And this one was on the original VC 102 card back as well, unpunched. So I thought that was a really good deal at $312. You know, a year and a half ago, this is probably double that price. It was like $500 to $600, if not more, for an original issue VC 102. So good deal there. Now, this is not vintage collection. This is like the, you know, vintage original the original trilogy collection, but it's signed by Mark Hamill, and Mark Hamill's signature is particularly expensive because he does not do a lot of conventions. He does not do a lot of signatures. And he also does have a very distinctive signature with that slash going through the mark and then the big L loops. So it's usually pretty easy to spot his signature. Now, this one was already authenticated as well from Beckett's, and it commanded a big number. It sold for 500 pounds, which is 625 US dollars. Now, if you were to send an item in to one of those autograph kind of third-party, you know, handlers, they would charge you more than that. So that was a pretty decent deal. We just talked about in one of my comic videos, a Return of the Jedi comic that was a signature series 9.8 that was signed by Mark Hamill and had Mark Hamill on the Return of the Jedi #1. And I went after that when I tried to bid on it, and it blew past my number. It sold for, I don't remember the number. I want to say $800 to $900 minimum. So that was a pretty good deal. Now, again, it's on a vintage original trilogy, and I wanted to talk about this for a second because I did receive a question from a subscriber or a Patreon by email, and they said, hey, I'm thinking about getting one of my original Kenner 12-backs signed by Mark Hamill. And he said, do you think that's a good idea? And my personal opinion on this, and you guys might disagree, but as you're leaving a like for this video, maybe comment below and see what you think. But my experience has been, at least looking on eBay, that it actually hurts the value of vintage Kenner mint on cards when you get them autographed. That just seems to be what I've seen for items that are vintage Kenner, mint on card, signed by like the actor like Peter Mayhew or Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO. But, you know, Mark Hamill's signature is expensive enough as it is that I don't think you want to go messing with getting a 12-back signed, because 12-backs are very, very pricey, especially for Luke Farm Boys. And no matter what the condition is, my personal opinion is I would put it on a modern card back, whether it's a vintage collection or whatever it is you want to pick, I just think it's a mistake to get a vintage Kenner mint on card signed. You can do whatever you want. I mean, it's your item, it's your collection. We all collect differently, but I just think that given how expensive 12 backs are, that to get, most people when they collect 12 backs, at some point you're going to sell the item, right? Maybe you don't, and your family's got to sell it after we all pass away, right? But I think if I had the opportunity to get Mark Hamill to sign something, it probably wouldn't be a 12 back. It would probably be a vintage collection, either Luke Jedi or, something like that has an iconic photo on the card back. You can get the same appeal and the same aesthetic qualities of a Mark Hamill signed vintage mint on, a autographed mint on card item without going the route of using a 12 back. A 12 back is just so expensive. And this is a pretty good example of what you could do with that. It gives you the feel of the vintage mint on cards. It's got the same image, right? But you're not spending, you're not using $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 item to get it signed. That's just my personal opinion on it. To me, you're better off buying one of these original trilogy collection, original vintage trilogy, whatever this is. These cost like $15 to buy one of these in really good mint condition, and then you can use this to get it signed by Mark Hamill. So that was just an aside I wanted to do as part of this video, because I did receive that question last week, and I just happened to find this one that sold fairly recently as part of that. So I just think this would be the route I would go personally. So anyway, for whatever that's worth, and let me know in the comments if you disagree with that. I mean, we all collect differently. I'm not telling you what to do with your item. I'm just trying to give you advice, because I think whenever you go to sell it, most collectors that are buying 12 backs, they want them kind of store fresh. They don't want signed examples of 12 backs. Next up, I did have one graded item. I don't think I included any other graded items before we dig into some vehicle sales and then finally some SDCC exclusives. But I had to show you this one. This one was an uncirculated 95 grade original issue Shea Vizsla, unpunched, got the character debut sticker, the Darth Maul offer sticker. But what's unique about this is that whoever submitted this one, they got uncirculated grading, and they opted for the 3-tier grading instead of the modern tier grading with AFA. And the card got a 95, blister 90, figure 95. It's very tough to get a 95 with 3-tier grading. And it was an uncirculated 95. So it was an absolute beauty. Now, was I expecting it to sell for $316 in the current market environment for vintage collection items? No, I was not. That was a big number, $316. So that just shows you that even items like Shea Vizsla, we've talked about Shea Vizsla. We might have even talked about Shea Vizsla last week, where the going rate for a near mint condition ungraded example is like $100 to $125 now, maybe $150 at most. But somebody was willing to pay $316 for an uncirculated 95 grade. I mean, that's as good as it gets. That's as good as it gets. And I think now, like I talked about in other videos, now that we have the population reports available on AFA's website for most items, you might be able to look this up and see, I didn't do it, but you might be able to look it up and say, hey, it's one of 3 or one of 5 that are uncirculated 95s. And that's a selling point, I think, if you happen to have AFA graded vintage collection that you're trying to sell. Look up the population report and see what it is. Now, I will tell you that the population report does not work for everything right now. I looked up one of my prototypes, my vintage Kenner prototypes for Lobot. That was a clear head prototype, first shot head pull. And I typed in the certification number and it didn't pull up. And so I know it's a legit item. It's not like a fake AFA item. I bought it from a very trusted high-end seller that is well known in the vintage Kenner community on Facebook. So the AFA population report is not 100% updated, or it doesn't have everything that has been graded by AFA on the website. But for something like this, I guarantee you that if you typed in this certification number on AFA's population report, it would show up. So I did it for the Bosque, and it's one of 11. I did it for my Spanish POC, early Spanish Sand People Tuscan Raider, and it's like one of 6 total that have ever been graded. So it's just kind of I mean, I don't particularly care. It's not like a big deal, but I just think it's kind of cool to see how many other examples have been graded and where yours stacks up relative to others that have been graded. So I bet this U95, it's got a pretty limited number of those that have sold. All right, enough about that. Let's go back to some vehicles before we finish off with the SDCC Mouse Droid and Salacious Crumb. These are a couple I haven't talked about recently. The V19 Torrent Starfighter mint in sealed box. Very good deal there. $85 plus $15 shipping, so about $100. Obi-Wan Starfighter is one that's held up very well. This one has actually, if anything, gone up in price. You could have picked this up about 6 months ago for like $100 to $115 plus shipping. This one sold for $150 free shipping. So not too much higher, but it has gone up a little bit in price, in my opinion. Next up, I had to show you this. I couldn't, in all fairness, this seller did not use actual photos. They just used like stock photos. So this is the Book of Boba Fett Starship, or the Fire Spray, or whatever you want to call it. And he said that the Starship box is in perfect condition. Now, again, they did not show the actual sales or the actual item being sold. They just used stock photos. It sold for $76 plus $12.50 shipping. So under $100 for the updated packaging for Boba Fett Starship. So maybe collectors are talking with their wallets now. Maybe they just didn't trust the seller to deliver a mint and seal box, perfect condition box. But either way, $76 that's a really low number. That's a really low number. All right, finally, we're going to finish off with the 2 big boys. Jar Jar Binks in Carbonite, beautiful unpunched card, very, very mint condition. And that one sold for $650 plus $9.80 shipping. Now, this is from the Lost Line packaging box, so this is not the SDCC, but I wanted to show this one because that is a beauty, and $650 is a very strong number for that one. We've seen a few that have sold kind of $500 to $550 recently, but $650 took that home. And in all fairness to whoever bought it, it was in pretty much perfect condition. So I can understand paying up a little bit for it. And then finally, here is Salacious Crumb. I don't think I had the Mouse Droid as well. No, I did not. But this is the Salacious Crumb. And this is obviously from the SDCC Death Star box set. That one was an unpunched example, and that one sold for $1,000. Now, if you remember, we've seen a few SDCC box sets for everything that have sold for sub $2,000 now. So you could have, in those sales, you could have gotten the Salacious Crumb and the Mouse Droid and all of the other Revenge of the Jedi mint on cards for, I think the last sale was like $1,800 to $1,900. Just the Salacious Crumb sold for $1,000 plus shipping. So that is a big, big number for just the Salacious Crumb, especially given that he's being re-released here soon, right? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at recent autographs, mainly sales on the Vintage Collection card backs and kind of a side discussion. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again, as always, for watching. Thank you again to my folks who sent supers as well as to my new Patreons. I really appreciate the channel support, and I'll be back soon.